Hi, everyone. This is Mondi on Astral Oracles. And before I channel the Solons on future visions and where humanity is going, then I'll just share a live stream announcement because I'll be switching to doing Zoom calls. And if you ever donated to the practice, I'm going to abuse your email address to send you an invite with the Zoom link so you can get on that. And if you want to get on the live calls, you can still donate, and I'll leave a link below, so you will have the opportunity to join. And this Sunday will be Archangel Raphael, and I'm looking very much forward to that. And I still, for those of you who just want to join in for free, I'll still encourage the moderators to pick some questions from the live stream and answer them. But that way I can also, stay in the trance for the whole duration. And I think that will be a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that. And then we'll be working with the Solons, and if you don't know them, it's humans from the future. It's 8D humans, and the eighth dimension is usually when ascended species move out of the physical, they attach themselves to the local star and sort of center themselves in this energetic configuration. And my impression is usually when people work with the Syrians, they actually work with eight-dimensional Syrians. There's also a 9D collective and everything. And I have also sometimes channeled someone who's still in the physical, but this is the usual configuration. And of course, since there's no time and space in the astral, we can connect to humans from eventual future timelines that already exist, so to speak. And of course, the interesting thing about this is that they have a lot of perspectives on where we are going, and they have a lot of experiences on where they have been. So that's why I thought it might be interesting, because I think it's fairly obvious that our ways of living and societies and everything are changing these years, and so it would be interesting to try to hear what perspectives they have on yes, what kind of societies we're building, and where we might go to live in a more sustainable and happy and healthy way. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you for being here. We bring you greetings and blessings from our shared Mother Star, this great beaming vessel of energy and light that we have now made home. Well, it happened that the planet that we also once inhabited, the planet you know as Earth, it became uninhabitable. But that was only a long time after that we had already passed into the non-physical. But it is true that in our own ascension process, or indeed in your ascension process as you will move into it, there was a period of time where we were learning these lessons about how to live on Earth in a way that was happy and healthy, as our friend said here, and in a way that respected the circumstances. Partially, the problem that you may term as overpopulation, it will gradually begin to diminish in the future generations. You are reaching a type of crescendo in this type of population. See, what you may be intuiting is that in this great shift that you are moving through, there are still many codes of ancient ways of living and unconscious ways of living that are no longer serving you, but that seem to run their course. And so at present, more and more human beings are being generated, and at the same time you experience that less and less resources seem available to these human beings, or fewer and fewer resources. We are being corrected here, but this is the idea that, well, there needs to be a shift. And when we say need, of course, nothing is needed or necessary, nothing is forced, nothing is essentially contrived except for the own the forcefulness and the neurotic patterns that human beings in their arrayed mental states, they still seem to impose upon their own ideas of the world. And this is indeed what is happening. It is the idea that many things are being orchestrated, and so what is developing indeed is a sense of human autonomy within a minor part of the human collective. And this minor part of the human collective will be the part that carries the human project forward. There are indeed many human beings in your present state or in that section of time space which you occupy, which are being filtered out or deselecting themselves from the future. This has to do with the idea of densities. You could also think of it as the dimensional focus, but this is more of a spiritual way of looking at it. Instead, know that what has also been coming through other entities and vessels is the idea that the genome is changing, and this is only happening to a certain part of humanity. It is available to all, but many forces and indeed many human beings or human souls have chosen to move into this planet at this time to explore what was left or the remnants of the third density in which you find yourself. And this is a place where you are still mostly identified with the physical instead of your energetic realities. And well, these people will have a hard time moving into the future. And so a way that this overpopulation will be decreased is essentially also by a growing problem of infertility. You may sense that here there is a shift from what happened on the Grey timeline, where they began solving this infertility by still exploring these densities of physicality. And so the problem of infertility kept growing, but here instead what you are also exploring is the ability that you have to recreate yourselves in different ways. So many human beings will begin to be built or grown in with certain configurations rather than they will begin to be produced by the normal methods of which we are sure you are aware. But notice again this dimension of sexuality. It is not something that will dwindle, but it is rather the idea that a lot of these energies that have been of a, that have been a current of, let us say, sexual attraction will instead move into the currents of higher excitement and creation. And so notice what is taking place in your own life when you are moving into a certain specific configuration of your own creativity. This is indeed your soul trying to re-emerge with your body, and this indeed also will result in the fact that you are, let us say, procreating in different ways. You are instead trying to identify yourselves with a greater part of the human project, and you are adding your intentions and your benevolence to this part of the human project, finding meaning in this rather than necessarily bringing forward offspring to be. And we are using this term with a certain sense of sarcasm, but rather than you dooming your offspring to live the same despondent lives that you yourselves have lived in these systems of coercion. Indeed, these systems of coercion you are rebuilding because you have found out that in the sense of human autonomy is becoming more and more prevalent in every human being, and these systems, they only exist by the fact that, well, it was possible for human beings to join them. And at the same time, what began as the construction of cities, that is the concentration of resources and knowledge within certain centers where these could be kept and then they could be dispersed, or we could even say transmitted into the rest of humanity. This is instead changing into the fact where human knowledge is available at the drop of a hat electronically, and indeed human knowledge and the knowledge of the past and the future is also becoming available to you through the ethers. So this begins a great shift, and when you move approximately 15 years into your timeline, you will also notice that your experience of human beings' physical appearance, it is beginning to change. And therefore, this change in human physical experience, it will indeed also result in different political organizations. And what you are seeing in the upheavals and the turmoil that is slowly beginning to manifest itself on your planet and which will grow in the future 5 years, these are also the beginnings of new types of more disjointed polities that work on a lesser scale. That is, the time of the nation state is coming to an end. The time of the great state is coming to an end. And notice that this again also relied on these more centralized ways of organizing yourselves, and you are indeed becoming very decentralized in your way of thinking. This somehow also relates to a shift in human consciousness that is more related to a more feminine energy, that is an energy that's able to be present in several places at one time rather than having a central focus and locus of control. These are perspectives that may be helpful for you to notice, and also notice historically you have moved through many types, different types of organization. You have had empires, you have had nation states, but you have also had the polis or the city state. You have also had the tribe. And indeed, the organization of the future will look much more like these two latter types of social construction. That is, small polities where people tend to know each other, and these will be then interconnected mostly by digital means, and this will also mean that you move into a more type of planned economy. This is not to be thought of again as something centralized where production is subject to a lot of different types of restrictions and pre-planning, but it is rather that you are able to coordinate which needs are being met, and you will begin to gather in tribes where expertise is then collected, and these tribes will then deliver a certain type of product, as well, of course, as containing more of the basic social functions that are needed in every type of society. So envision yourselves more as small types of village factory units with high degrees of technological expertise that are all interconnected and that are able to communicate to each other which things from each part that is necessary for it to produce. This is also connected to a greater degree of lack, so you are moving into more self-sufficient societies where foodstuffs can be produced and where you will then be able to, in case of certain environmental upsets, or in the case of the cities that will begin to sprout on the oceans and on the water side, you will begin to, in the sea, you will begin to notice that, well, you are already drawn to this type of community building. You are already drawn to a phenomenon such as tiny houses or tree houses and these different things where you will begin to work in organic structures. So it will again be a time where human beings, they return to the sacred codes of nature, and they will often decide to live surrounded by forests, or decide to live up on the mountainsides where solar energy might be more readily available and temperatures are also more pleasant, seeing as many areas on the dry land are becoming increasingly difficult for you to sustain yourselves. These are some of the visions. Also notice that then we hear the counter argument of these societies being very vulnerable to the violent action. So that is aggressions of greater or more militarized political units. But notice that your weapons technology has already, as that visionary Alfred Nobel already conceived, moved into a place where you have been able to produce so much destructive force and harness so much destructive force that the need for destructive force seems quite absurd, because it's always a threat of mutual destruction. And you will indeed move into places when you begin to master energy where it will be very easy for different beings of humankind to mobilize these destructive forces. So with this threat of mutual destruction, this will, within generations, then move into a place where this phenomenon is almost forgotten, and you instead align with the necessity for creation and for alignment with the codes that are moving through the planet and the time space and your species in general. That is why for most human beings we envision a far more peaceful and far more prosperous future where you can go exploring on your planet and where you will allow great spaces to begin to repopulate themselves with wildlife and different types of wild organic growth, and you will have the opportunity to then go visit and explore these spaces and learn from them instead of exploiting them, which have been, of course, part of the human ascension and the endeavor in you trying to understand and to survive this planet and trying to survive on it. So have faith that much is changing, and much is changing for the better, and much as when you witness a birth you will notice that it looks quite violent and unpleasant. It is truly paving the way for a new life to emerge onto this planet and into the world. That is where you are moving, and we, along with many other species, will be guiding you on this path, though you are in the driver's seat and you are the ones who will bring this forward. Therefore, we bless you from the future, our human brethren, our dear ancestors, and we bring you the divine light of the sun to heal and guide you. We offer you information as soon as you stare into this, and notice therefore that sun gazing is also a powerful technique where you can connect to these higher vibrations within you. You are becoming more and more aligned with solar light, and you are indeed becoming like small suns yourself. Therefore, shine on, because every man, woman, and child is a star, and this is the realization that you are moving into. Do your will and do it with joy and compassion, and there you will be led into a bright future of human brotherhood. Blessings to you and the love from your future being.